Hello there everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tip of the Week. This is Lily, the product manager of Pro Products here at Toon, and I am going to have a whole series of new tips up on the way for you guys. And so I'm going to start this week with the hero character. So I had some people on the forums that were asking me if I could go through the hero character in a little bit of detail to show, how this character was built and why he was built that way. And to kind of help people to figure out, what kind of things were being done here. And what's interesting about looking at this character is that he actually combines together a lot of the concepts that we've already gone over in Tip of the Week. So what I can do is I can go over the character and show some of the things and have you guys, point out the other tips that you might want to watch to see what's going on. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, the hero character is this guy right here, and he actually comes as sample material that you can load into Animate Pro. So this is kind of an Animate Pro specific demonstration here today, but a lot of the concepts that were used to build the hero character can also be used in Harmony. Animate is a little bit simpler, so it lacks some of the tools that we're going to use here today, but some of them can be done in Animate as well. So basically, when it comes down to our hero character, if we take a look at, let's start with his face. So if we take a look at his face, he is a cutout character and he's built with different pieces. So I can, using my transform tool that I can use to animate with, I can simply select the different pieces here and check out what's going on. And if I take a look in my library view, which I'll be able to see over here on the right hand side, the library view is the one that allows me to swap in the different mouths that can be used. So you can see that the character does have a variety of different mouths for the different mouth shapes that you'll need when you do lip sync, and they're already set up for lip sync because they're set up with that A, B, C, D naming convention. And then there's a few additional mouths in there, like the L mouth and the smile and the frown. So, you do have some additional mouths that you will manually swap in when you need them. And so definitely this whole lip syncing thing, I should probably do a separate tip on lip sync just to go over that, but generally it's the same way that you would follow it in the other tutorial. So you can build a library of mouths, and then you can import a sound, and you can actually sync this character's mouth to that sound. So you probably, while you're building a character like this character has pretty much just been built from the 3/4 view, but if you're going to build a character like this, then you might want to create a variety of different eyebrows. See, this guy's got an eyebrow going up, an eyebrow going down. You might want to have a variety of different eye positions, so he's got his eyes really open when he's like, scared or freaked out, and then he can have his eyes really closed when he's blinking and things like that. So basically, when it comes to creating your cutout character, the first step is to create the different drawings that you're going to need. So that still hasn't changed from anything else. This character does make use of the inverse cutter technique on the eye. So if you did check out the tip of the week on the eyeball rig, then this definitely takes that into consideration. So I can select my eye here and I can move it around inside, and the eye is being cut off with the white of the eye there. And so this is one of those tricks that allows you to kind of easily animate the position of your eyes, because you don't have to worry about where the lines are. It's always going to be cut off nicely. So if you're interested in looking at more of how to do the eyes like this, then definitely check out the eye rig, which is one of the tip of the weeks that we have there. So this character, in addition to having different drawings that you can swap out, he's also got a hierarchy, right? So I can select the nose, for example. I can hit B. B goes up to the parent element. So if I hit B a couple of times, I get to all the facial features here. And I don't have this one set up so that the facial features cut off at the edge of the face. And the reason that I don't have it set up here is because with this particular character, the shape of his face kind of needs to change as he changes from a front to a 3/4 to a profile. And the reason is because he's a very realistic looking character. So with a character who the shape of the face needs to change, there's one of two ways of doing it. If you're using Animate or Animate Pro, you do a new drawing. if you're using Harmony, you can actually put a curve all the way around the edge of the face, and you can actually warp sort of how the lines of that face look. And you can see both of those techniques if you check out the head rig, which is another tip of the week that you can look at. So in this case, since we're in Animate Pro, we're just basically going to swap the head, and this character was built for a 3/4 only. You might say, oh, Lily, well, why did you only build this sample material in a 3/4? And the reason for that is 3/4 is the most common view, and a lot of shows, if you actually kind of take a look at it, a lot of shows will cheat and do just about everything from a 3/4 view. And it's a way of kind of cutting corners a little bit, but on the other hand, you can get some fluid animation by using great animation techniques with a 3/4 rig. So if you're only going to do one rig, the 3/4 is definitely the way to go. You don't usually have a lot of full-on, straight-on face shots. You do sometimes have profiles. You probably do need a 3/4 back at least, but you can definitely do a lot just using the 3/4 front and the 3/4 back. So in addition to having the eyeball cut off, he's also got this nifty, kind of belt thing here, and this kind of like defines his where his jacket vest thing is kind of attaching there. And you can see that the pivot point for this belt is at a useful location to be able to kind of squash and stretch it and skew it, so that if you need to have the character turning his torso, you can kind of fake some torso movements, and the actual vest on the torso as well. And you may have to occasionally sort of animate which elements are in front, like if I need to just kind of pop that like all the way back or whatever. So you can kind of find ways of getting around where that guy is in the front there. We'll have to take a look at how the rig is done. But basically, I can move the vest around on the body, and you see here that the vest is being cut off with the body. And the cool thing about this too is if you treat the clothes that way, you can actually turn the clothes off as well. And he is drawn underneath it. So, you can move around the various different elements on his chest. So that if you need to have a realistic looking shot where he might be fighting somebody with his shirt off, then you can do that quite easily here just by swapping off the clothes. If you do have the clothes as the same body part as the torso, you just swap the entire drawing out. The only disadvantage with that is that you always have to animate twice, because you animate the torso position and then you animate the clothing as two separate drawings. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that. When we take a look at how this all is done, let's take a look in our network view so that we can try and digest a little bit more how we did this. And for some reason I had two network views open there. So basically, this whole character rig is made up of composites and cutters. And and then when you see anything like a tone module, the tone module is what is defining the shadow. And I had the shadow, some of the shadows are not clickable just to make it easier to grab I made this shadow not clickable so that I can grab these belt things a little bit easier there, the buckles. But anything with a tone on it is what defines the shadow, so that you can go in there and you can actually animate the shadow on the character as he's moving around. These shadows or tones, I went over how to do that. If you look at, there is a tip of the week called Tones and Highlights. So you can see I've actually covered quite a few concepts of how to create a really nice sophisticated character rig in tip of the week. So if you are kind of still getting started, or if you have specific questions about, oh, I don't know how to do a shadow, definitely go back and take a look at some of the older videos as well. I keep adding to this collection, and I try to do as much as I can, but it's definitely a question of time, how much time I have to do some of this extra stuff. So what happens is, let's say I've got all of these elements. When I click on the composite here, so when I select the composite, I can actually see the elements that I have selected in blue. And that's true for any composite. It just kind of highlights all the elements that are connected to it. And it allows me to easily get a look at, okay, what is it that I'm actually doing with this composite? And this composite is simply gathering together all of these different drawing layers. So I've got the strap, which is this guy up here. I've got the vest, which is, the vest on his chest there. I've got the buckle on the bottom and the buckle on the top. So I'm using this composite to gather all of those elements together because I want to actually cut them out. And I'm using a couple of different drawing layers to cut those out. And I can see that there's a few different drawing layers in there because there's another composite here. But if I want to see which drawing layers they are, then I'll have to go back outside to the main rig to see what's coming into this group. When you're looking inside a group, you always see a multi-port in at the top, and then there's a multi-port out. So if I go back outside my group and look at the group, the multi-port in is showing all the things that are connected that are coming in to your group. And the out is showing what's coming out of the other side. So if I go back in here, you see that there's about 6 drawings here that are coming in, or 6 elements, because some of these are pegs. 6 things are coming into my group here. And I can treat each one of those 6 things separately. And that's the reason that you'd have them come in as 6 different things if you need to treat them separately. So if I go back outside and I check what things are on the right-hand side there that are cutting off that vest layer, I see that I have the body connected in there. And I have also the neck connected in there. So these are the different elements that are defining the region that those things can exist. So it's basically what a cutter does. It's the same thing that we did with the eyeball when we look at the eyeball rig. The cutter says when these 2 elements are overlapping, show them. Or show the overlap, show where the overlap is happening. So we're doing the same thing here, except we're gathering together multiple elements and saying when all of these elements are overlapping with the body, show all of these elements. So here, if I go back inside here and I check out, this composite is gathering these elements together, and then it's cutting those off with the torso. And if I take a look in the cutter has set up there the inverted. This is the thing that allows it to show on the inside. If you uncheck inverted, then it shows everything on the outside, which is not what we want. So we want to show where they're overlapping. So the cutter is the first really important tool that you have in your toolbox when you're character rigging. You want to make sure that you understand very well how to do cutter. And cutter has been addressed in many different things. It's been addressed in the eyeball rig, the head rig, so definitely go back and have a look at the cutter. It's a very useful extra technique. Of course, this character is also making use of hierarchy, and the hierarchy is also something else that's very important. So I have all these different elements, and they're all connected to one master peg. So the master peg is what allows me to actually move my character around. In this case, I probably should have the pivot point for my master peg between the feet, so I have a little mistake there. And then I've also got a peg that defines just the upper body. And so when I use the upper body and I sort of rotate the upper body, you see it's rotating around his navel there. And you might notice the skirt is also following the movement. And the reason that I did that is because the skirt's pivot point is in the center there, so if you have the skirt follow the movement, you can just kind of tweak it and skew and squash and stretch it just a little bit to kind of get it in the right area. If you really want to do a skirt that has a smooth flow where you can actually drag on deformers, you kind of need a curve style deformer to do a skirt. You can very well cheat a skirt with a skew and a squash and stretch, but when it comes to actually, like if I want to pull this side this way and I want to pull this side this way, you can use a quad map, but it's a little tricky, or the deform is definitely, the curve style deformer is definitely the way to go for that. Speaking of deformers, so this is the other thing we've got here. We've got the hierarchy, which allows me to move around specific elements. Let's undo that movement to get my animation back the way it was. And for hierarchy, there is a tip of the week also on just generally creating a cutout character and a hierarchy, so you can go over that. But basically, when you have elements that are parents of other elements, the child elements appear indented here in the timeline. And when you're using your network view, when one element has an out port that's connected to an in port of something else, it means it's controlling it. So, for example, the neck here is a parent of all these other elements. And so when I rotate this neck, it's rotating the head, it's rotating the neck itself, it's rotating the hair, all of those elements. Just like when I click on a composite, when I click on a peg, it makes everything that's connected to that peg yellow. So you have a quick glance, and you can see at a quick glance what elements you're actually looking at. Okay, so speaking of deformers, let's go back to that concept for a second. So I've actually got a few deformers on this character as well. And I've got the first deformer here on the hair. So seems pretty simple. In this case, I can just kind of grab this curve here, and or this bone, I'm sorry. In Animate Pro, you're limited to bone style deformers only. In Harmony, you have bone and curve. So curve is really great for things like tails. It is also great for hair. In this case, with this character, I can get away with doing a bone on the hair because I'm kind of looking at it from the back or the side, and I just want to rotate it this way. If I wanted to do something where I want to pull one side this way and I want to pull the other side that way, that's something you need a curve style deformer for. But anything like a tail, eyebrows are great with curve style deformers as well, because they get that really nice fluid thing like that. Now this character also has deformers set up on the leg, and one thing that you may notice if you try to pull apart your character rig, let me just turn off this, and in case you don't know how I did that, I just selected my my stick there. Shouldn't call it a stick, it's a staff, it's a weapon. So I selected the staff, and then I hit the left bracket key to quickly swap the drawing off. So you know, in your library you can swap the drawings by dragging on the slider. If you use the left and right bracket keys, which look like square brackets on your keyboard, those will allow you to quickly swap drawings on and off. So now that I hid my staff, I can take an easier look at what's going on with my leg here. So if I take a look at the leg, I see I have a curve style deformer on the leg, and I can use the curve to do things like bend the leg. And one of the main reasons why it's really nice and really cool to have the curve style deformer on this character is because of what's going on here with the ankle. So in a traditional cutout character, if you want to do this, where you want to bend the toe, you need to have a separate drawing for that. You need to have a drawing swap every time you do anything that creates a new shape. So with a curve style deformer, I can actually, you know, like have him rotate his ankle, and I can have him rotate his toe, and I can do all of that within one drawing. I've still split this character up into separate drawings, so I've still got, you know, I've got the different straps and so on their own layers, just in case you need to go in there and do some extra tweaking. But generally, 90% of what you want to do is just moving the curved deformers around, and moving them around is going to allow you to get all of the shapes that you need. But the other advantage of actually separating out the straps onto their own layer is just simply in case you want to turn them off. Like if my character has a scene where he's got, you know, bare feet, I don't have to do a new rig for that. I don't have to do a new drawing. I just have to turn off the drawing layers that represent that sandal, and my animation still works. So that's a really neat kind of thing. And then I've also got separate drawing layers for the lower leg and the upper leg. And the advantage of that is that you can actually also swap which one of these elements is in front. So you know, with your what do you call it, up and down, alt and up and down arrows, you can temporarily nudge elements in front of or behind other elements. So that's definitely something to kind of be aware of. And then I can also have some detailed shadows and things like I do in the knee, and that will still work as I'm animating here as well. So these are some of the reasons that we did that. Now, when we take a look at how this actually looks in our network view, what we see over here is, let's go outside the deform group. I don't really need to look inside the deform group. So here's my deform group for my leg. And what's interesting about this is I've just got one deform group, and that one deform group is connected to the entire leg. But inside, I do have still separated out all the other different little elements. And like I mentioned, you don't have to separate out those elements, but the advantage of separating them out is you get to swap those elements separately, and you can animate them separately in case you need to tweak something. Like if I need to squash or stretch just that element, I can squash or stretch it, and it gives me the freedom of doing that. So even if you don't do it very often, it's handy to have it there. Having things like the knee and the upper leg and the lower leg separate is super useful because of being able to swap those elements in front or in back. So like if I need to take the upper leg and I need to move it in front of the lower leg. So let's overlap these guys here. So if I need to, animate this guy in front, this is where I can use that Alt and down arrow and Alt and up arrow shortcut to move it behind and in front. So, oops, my computer's a little slow today. I am working right now, you wouldn't believe, on an almost 4-year-old MacBook Air. I keep saying I'm going to get a new computer, and I will. I'm just waiting for the right one to pop around. So, okay, so that's basically what this character is all about. You've got some deforms on things like the arms and legs, and then you've got things like cutters that are cutting off elements like the belt, like the tattoo. And the cool thing about doing things like a tattoo on a separate layer is not only that you can animate it slightly and make it look like the position of the arm is moving around, but it's also that you can play around with different styles. So like I could, switch his tattoo to a different tattoo, and maybe you have like a variety of different characters that are all similar body types, and you want to just kind of play around to get the right look. Then you can always play around by, just kind of having that as its own layer. Whereas if that was all one part of the arm layer, I'd have to do a new arm every time I wanted to play around with what the tattoo was. So definitely some interesting things like that. So if you go back and have a look at this hero character again, I hope that helps you to see kind of how it was built and what to use when you're looking at it. And in terms of when we animate this guy, it's just the same old way that you animate anything else when you're doing cutouts. So, you just go to a new frame. You hit F5 to extend exposure if the exposure is not already extended. F6 will add a new keyframe. And then once you've added your keyframe, then you can go in there and animate it. With things like the arms and legs, because they're defined by deform, just make sure you go ahead and show the selected deform on that layer. And now you can go in there and, make a change. So, I don't know, he's going to do something crazy. He's going to go all the way up like that. Your arm shouldn't be doing that. So, I don't know. We'll try to make his hand flip around or something. No, now he just looks like a little bent. Let's go down this way, it's easier. So yeah, whatever you want to do, you can play around with this guy. And you just want to select a drawing layer that's connected to your deform rig, and then you can click that deform rig button. Use this to animate him out. And as you're posing your character, you can make large movements, and then you can make small adjustments. So, if I need to do something like squash or stretch my skirt, I can do that here as well. So lots of different things that you can play around with. This skirt does have a quad map on it, so if you do need to go in there, and just remember also, let's say I want to take a look more at what's going on in the skirt. If I make the focus or the red outline around my network view, I can click on the O shortcut and see what's happening here in the network, so I can see my quad map. And then once you've got your quad map showing, I usually like to turn on my camera view toolbar, so if you just right click in the top here, you can select camera view and show control. So now I can see where the handles are that I can click on there, and I can actually just kind of adjust the size and shape of the skirt to make it match the movement more or less that I'm doing down there. So I hope that gives you a lot to play around with when you're looking at the hero character, and stay tuned for more next week.